FFBC for Kids is proud to present the Psalms. Psalm 36. An oracle within my heart concerning the transgression of the wicked. There is no fear of God before his eyes. For he flatters himself in his own eyes, when he finds out his iniquity, and when he hates. The words of his mouth are wickedness and deceit. He has ceased to be wise and to do good. He devises wickedness on his bed. He sets himself in a way that is not good. He does not abhor evil. Your mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the clouds. Your righteousness is like the great mountains. Your judgments are a great deep. O Lord, you preserve man and beast. How precious is your loving kindness, O God! Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of your wings. They are abundantly satisfied with the fullness of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your pleasures. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. Oh, continue your loving kindness to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright in heart. Let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked drive me away. There the workers of iniquity have fallen. They have been cast down, and are not able to rise.
Psalm 36 is another psalm that David wrote and teaches us all about the majesty of God and compares it to humans and our flaws. The first 4 verses talk about a wicked man. It tells us that this man does not fear God and flatters himself in his own eyes. This means that he thinks that he is much better than he actually is and does not show respect for God. He does not try to be good or be wise, but does wicked things. The last line of verse 4 says that he does not despise evil. This man does wrong things and doesn't even see it as bad. After describing this wicked man, David suddenly switches focus and talks about God and his majesty. God's majesty is his greatness and his power and his awesomeness. Verses 5 and 6 describe God's majesty like this. God's love and his faithfulness are so big that they reach to the heavens and fill the entire sky. And his righteousness is huge and unmovable like the mountains. And his justice or judgment is bottomless like the deepest part of the ocean. David uses the biggest things in the world to show how great God is. This is an image of God's majesty. And then David changes focus again. In verses 7 to 9, David talks about how God's goodness can also be seen in how close he is and how well he takes care of both the humans and the animals that he has created. Because of the care God has for his creation, David says that the love of God is something precious and is something that we should value having. Because of God's great love, we can feel safe and protected because God invites us to take refuge in him. He provides abundantly for all his people, all that they need. And verse 9 calls God the fountain of life and says that in his light we can see light. All true life comes from God, just like water coming from a fountain. And we need the light of God to see the righteous way to live. We cannot do that on our own, but with God we can. Then David ends this psalm with a prayer that ties all these ideas together. David, remembering how majestic of a God he serves, prays that God will continue to closely love those who know him, and that God would keep David safe from the wicked man that the beginning of the psalm talked about, and that God would keep him from becoming like that wicked man.
Psalm Songs with the Psalm Song Guy.
Your love, O Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness stretches to the sky.
Think about it with Pastor Daniel.
Psalm 36 has some really majestic imagery. It has some pictures given to us that show how awesome and huge and great and powerful God really is. But it doesn't only tell us about how huge God is, it also tells us about how much He loves us deeply, and He provides for us and cares for us and protects us. And in this psalm, David, the author, is comparing those who don't know God to those who do. Sin may seem fun for a time, but God's love stretches from horizon to horizon, as in from day to day. It goes forever. Evil may seem like it's winning for a time, but God's goodness and faithfulness will outlast the days of evil. Trouble and deceit may seem like they're growing and growing and growing in our world for a time, but God's righteousness is like a bigger mountain than the mountains of trouble and deceit. It may look like God doesn't care about wickedness and all the bad things happening in the world for a time, but God's justice and His judgment are so deep like the ocean that we can't even understand it fully. And in the end, God won't let wickedness go unpunished. That's what the last verse of the psalm tells us. Those who live wicked lives, well, their end is that they are cast down by God. And those who live for God, well, they experience His steadfast love that never fails, His constant provision, His delights, His life, His light. All of these things are in store forever for those who know and love and live for God. So what I want you to think about today is our song. Songs are a great way to remember who God is, to store that up in our hearts, just like memorizing God's Word is songs that are based on God's Word and good truth. Well, they help us to remember those things about God, especially when things seem bad. So why don't you rewind our video a little bit and listen again to the song that was there in the middle, and maybe try and learn it and sing along with it. That will help you to remember God's enormous love, His righteousness that's unmovable like the mountains, and how His justice will always come just like the ocean. And then when wicked people are around you and they seem to be doing well and it seems just hard to follow God, well, sing that song to yourself. It'll remind you who God is and the good things that are in store forever for those who live for Him. Thanks for watching FFBC for Kids. Come back next time as we continue in the book of Psalms. We'll see you then. Bye!